for me, you know, what's been remarkable is to see local organizations like food pantries in schools, and faith-based organizations, service organizations like Rotary clubs, really stepping up to provide a vital need for the community. But I think, as you said, what this crisis has really exacerbated is the kind of underlying, vulnerability of food security for so many people, not just because of unemployment, but because now of really disruptions in food supply. I know that Connecticut has been expanding SNAP benefits, a supplemental nutrition assistance program. What else can we do to alleviate food insecurity and homelessness that really have been produced or exacerbated because of the pandemic?
Yeah, those are great questions, and there are probably some answers that fall into the category of modernization. So for example, there's an ongoing discussion about, particularly given a time where we'd rather not have people jamming into grocery stores, could we change the SNAP program such that SNAP benefits could be used for takeout, for delivery? Now, there's a whole conversation to be had about that, but the answer to that is probably in some way, shape, or form, yes. And so there's the whole modernization question. I think about, two other observations. Number one, we're learning that while our food pantry system it's good to have there, particularly here in Southwestern Connecticut, there have been a lot of hiccups in that system. And that's already a very difficult thing. I mean, I've spent enough time in our food pantries to know that, it's a humiliating thing for someone who, and I'll never forget this from 2009, 2010, maybe who used to volunteer in that food pantry, to turn around and actually have to visit it in order to feed the family. So, you already have a fairly freighted thing. Here in the state of Connecticut, and Southwestern Connecticut in particular, like so many of our institutions, you wouldn't necessarily criticize it, but you would say, oh my gosh, you put it under a little bit of stress and it's at risk of breaking down. And I've spent an awful lot of time on the phone with food pantries here, fairly panicked about their ability to actually get the food that they need. So again, it's about modernization. It's, I keep sort of trying to draw the comparison to, insurance or the fire extinguisher that you should be keeping in your kitchen. It's just so easy in reasonable times to underinvest in that sort of thing, to take it for granted and stuff. But boy, when you need in a moment of crisis, you want to have invested such that whether it's a food pantry or distance learning or the ability to deliver cash to small businesses, which it turns out we didn't do quite the targeted fashion we would like. You'd like those systems to be more robust than they have shown themselves to be. This is about human rights. I just know we can do better in the disparities. And as you know, Sujata, I represent a very pro-business, very business-intensive district. So I'm usually the last guy to do the typical things about beating up on businesses. And by the way, I should say, businesses across the board have been wonderful in this context, whether it's Walmart expanding paid leave for people they didn't typically offer it to, or the banks voluntarily giving people forbearance. But I can't help but notice that, in my relatively short political career, the ability and the speed with which aid is offered to businesses large and small through the PPP program, through, 10 years ago, the bailout of the banks, capitalism is becoming more and more of a one-way street in this country. In the last 10 years, and again, I'm not in the business of beating up corporations. I actually get attacked by folks in my own party because I'm hesitant to do that. I think corporations are innovative, they employ people, but my gosh, it sort of feels like just 3 years ago they were saying we want our tax rate slashed, and in fact it went down from 35% to 21%. As a result, we're running massive deficits. But when times are tough, and again, I'm not saying this is like corporations are evil. I'm just saying that the structure is there to support them very, very quickly. And it's sort of a one-way street. They get tax cuts, their taxes get reduced. In times of trouble, the airlines get free taxpayer money to keep them from going bankrupt. And I just think we got to, at a minimum, offer the people, the American people, and in particular, more marginalized people, the same kind of speed of aid and consideration that we are constantly offering our corporate sector.
Absolutely. And we saw that with the small businesses too in the first round of the PPP.
Exactly.
So the small businesses, I think, also drive our economies and particularly our local economies. So we need support for everybody. Absolutely, Jim.